You worthless old woman. You live in that miserable little apartment and are good for nothing but making our lives miserable." Ashley's words echoed in the dining room as everyone looked down in embarrassment. My heart sank. Ryan had gone to take a call and hadn't seen anything. I choked back tears, grabbed my purse, and left silently. She had no idea who I really was. My name is Eleanor Matthews, and 3 years ago, my life changed forever. When my husband, Thomas, died of a sudden heart attack, I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. We had built everything together, not just our marriage, but our entire lives. He was my best friend, my confidant, my partner in absolutely everything. After the funeral, the house we'd shared for so many years felt too big, too empty, too full of memories that suffocated me. I decided to move to a modest apartment in a quiet neighborhood in Boston. 2 bedrooms, a cozy living room, and a small kitchen. Nothing luxurious, but it was my refuge. The bills were tight, but I had enough to live with dignity. I worked remotely as a financial consultant, something few people knew about me. I'd always preferred to keep my professional life private. Ryan, my 28-year-old son, was all I had left. He was my reason to wake up every morning. A kind, hard-working boy with a huge heart, just like his father. He called me every day, stopped by for lunch on Sundays, helped me with anything I needed. It was just the 2 of us against the world, and that was enough for me. Until Ashley showed up. I remember perfectly the day Ryan told me about her. His eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Mom, I've met someone special. She's amazing. You'll love her." My heart filled with hope. I wanted my son to be happy, to find someone who loved him as much as I loved his father. When I finally met Ashley, something inside me sank. She was beautiful, impeccably dressed, with a perfect smile that didn't reach her eyes. During dinner, she barely looked me in the eye. She asked about my apartment with a tone that sounded more judgmental than curious. "Oh, you live alone in a rented apartment. How cozy." The way she said it left a bitter taste in my mouth. But Ryan was beaming beside her. He held her hand as if he were holding the whole world. And I swallowed my suspicions. After all, who was I to judge? Maybe I was just being an overprotective mother, jealous of sharing my son with another woman. The weeks passed, and Ryan became increasingly enchanted. Ashley worked in marketing, was ambitious, and constantly talked about getting ahead and making the right connections. She had big plans, and I could tell Ryan was part of those plans, but I wasn't sure if it was out of love or convenience. I tried to talk to him once, gently. "Ryan, my love, are you sure she truly makes you happy?" He laughed, hugged me, and said, "Mom, I've never been so sure of anything in my life. Ashley is the woman I want to spend the rest of my days with." And what could I do? He was in love, blinded by love, and I, as a mother, just wanted to see him happy, even though my instincts screamed that something was wrong. 2 months later, Ryan called me ecstatic. "Mom, I asked Ashley to marry me, and she said yes." My heart sank, but I forced a smile into my voice. "Congratulations, son. I'm so happy for you." I wasn't, but I loved my son more than anything in this world. And if Ashley was his choice, I would try to accept it. I would try to be the best mother-in-law I could, even if everything inside me told me to protect Ryan from this woman. The wedding was scheduled for 3 months after the engagement. Ashley wanted something intimate and elegant. Her words, not mine. The ceremony would be at a boutique venue in Boston, overlooking the harbor. When Ryan told me how much they were spending, I nearly choked. But he seemed so happy that I didn't say anything. I wanted to give them something special, something that would show how much I loved my son and how much I was trying to embrace this union. I spent weeks thinking about the perfect gift. Finally, I decided. I would use part of my savings to give them a generous contribution toward the honeymoon Ashley had dreamed of. $10,000. It was a lot of money for me, representing months of work and sacrifice, but Ryan deserved it. On the wedding day, I wore my best navy blue dress, simple yet elegant. I arrived early to the ceremony and helped out as much as I could. Ashley looked stunning in an expensive white gown, surrounded by equally well-dressed friends. They barely even acknowledged me. The ceremony was beautiful. Seeing my son at the altar, tears in his eyes, made me momentarily forget all my worries. He was happy, and that had to be enough for me. At the reception, I waited for the right moment. As Ryan and Ashley were opening their gifts, I approached them with my envelope. "Ryan, my love, this is for you. For the honeymoon of your dreams." I handed the envelope over with a heavy heart. Ryan opened his eyes and widened. "Mom, this is too much. You didn't have to." He hugged me tightly, and I felt his tears on my shoulder. "I love you so much." Ashley took the check from him, glanced at it briefly, and said, "Oh, that's so sweet, Eleanor. Thank you." That was it. No hug, no emotion, no acknowledgement of the sacrifice it represented. She put the check aside and went back to chatting with her friends. My heart sank, but I took a deep breath. Maybe she was just nervous, busy with so many guests. I went to the bathroom later, and on my way back, I passed Ashley's group of friends. They didn't see me. I heard her voice, loud and clear. "You guys, your mother-in-law is so poor, she lives in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment. She doesn't even have anything to offer, poor thing. She gave a little money there, but it's barely enough to pay for the resort I really wanted." Her friends laughed. One of them commented, "At least she tried, right?" Ashley replied dismissively, "She tried, but she failed. Anyway, the important thing is that Ryan has potential. He'll get ahead, and I'll make sure of that." I froze behind the column. My hands were shaking. Those words hit me like a punch in the gut. Poor thing. She has nothing to offer. I had just given her $10,000, money that represented security, months of work, my sweat, and she was humiliating me in front of her friends. I took a deep breath, wiped away the tears that threatened to fall, and returned to the living room. Ryan was laughing with his friends, completely oblivious to what had just happened. I wasn't going to ruin my son's day. I wasn't going to tell him what I'd heard. Not yet. I smiled, took pictures, and danced with Ryan on the dance floor. But inside, something had changed. I finally saw Ashley for what she truly was, a cruel, self-serving woman who saw my son as a stepping stone and me as a hindrance. When I got home that night, I sat on the couch in my little apartment and cried. I cried for Ryan's naivete. I cried for the money I'd given. I cried for the humiliation. But most of all, I swore to myself that I wouldn't let that woman destroy my son. 2 weeks after the wedding, Ryan called me excitedly. "Mom, shall we have lunch on Sunday? Ashley wants you to come over. She's cooking." My stomach tightened, but I couldn't refuse. I wanted to see my son, and I still harbored a foolish hope that maybe, just maybe, we could build a better relationship. I arrived at their apartment at noon on Sunday, bringing a homemade apple pie, Ryan's favorite since childhood. The apartment was beautiful, modern, and clearly beyond what Ryan could afford on his own. I suspected Ashley's parents had helped, but I didn't say anything. Ashley greeted me at the door with a cool smile. Eleanor, how punctual. Not a hello, not a welcome. I walked in and found Ryan in the kitchen, finishing up the salad. My heart warmed to see him so domestic, so happy. "Mom, you brought the pie." He hugged me tightly and kissed my forehead. "I missed you so much." Lunch started off calmly. We talked about Ryan's work and the honeymoon they were going to plan better with the money I'd given them. Ashley didn't participate much, constantly checking her phone. I tried to be friendly and ask questions, but she responded in monosyllables. Then Ryan's phone rang. "Oh shit, it's my boss. I have to take this. It's about Monday's project." He stood up, excusing himself. "I'll be right back. Don't move." The second Ryan left the room, the atmosphere completely changed. Ashley put her phone down on the table and looked at me with a coldness that chilled me to the core. "You know, Eleanor, I need to tell you something. His voice was laced with venom. "You need to stop meddling in our lives." I blinked, confused. "Intrude." "I don't—" "Shut up." She cut me off, and my blood ran cold. "You're always calling Ryan, wanting to set up dinners, lunches, pretending you're still the center of his life, but you're not anymore. He has a wife now. He has a real life." My voice was shaky. "Ashley, I just want to see my son. I'm not trying to—" "Worthless old woman." She practically spat the words. "You live in that miserable little apartment, alone, with nothing to offer but pity. You're good for nothing but making our lives miserable. Ryan deserves better than having to carry the weight of a failed mother on his shoulders." The words hit me like knives. I felt my face burn, my eyes fill with tears. I looked around desperately, but we were alone. Ryan was outside, on the phone, not listening, not defending me, not even knowing that his wife was destroying me. Ashley continued, relentless. "That pathetic little gift you gave me. It barely covered half of what I wanted. You're poor, irrelevant, and the sooner you accept that, the better. So stop showing up here all the time like a needy person." My throat was closed. I couldn't speak. I couldn't scream. I couldn't defend myself. Tears began to fall, and I couldn't hold them back. I rose from the chair, trembling, and grabbed my bag with trembling hands. "Where do you think you're going?" Ashley asked, a cruel smile on her lips. "I need to leave." My voice came out in a broken whisper. I walked quickly through the living room, my heart pounding. I heard Ryan still talking on the phone on the porch. I couldn't wait for him. I couldn't look at him without completely breaking down. I opened the door and walked out. In the elevator, I broke down. I leaned against the cold wall and cried like I hadn't cried since Thomas's funeral. Ashley's words echoed in my mind. Worthless old woman, miserable, failed, irrelevant. I got home and locked myself in the apartment. Ryan called me 3 times that afternoon. "Mom, where did you go?" "Ashley said you weren't feeling well and left quickly. Is everything okay?" I lied. I said I had a headache and needed to rest. I lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me crack and harden at the same time. I had swallowed too much. I had accepted too much humiliation, but that had gone too far. That night, sitting on the couch in my shabby apartment, Ashley's words still echoed in my head. Worthless old woman, poor, irrelevant. I closed my eyes and let the tears dry on my face. And then, for the first time in years, I allowed myself to remember the truth I had so carefully guarded. The truth is, Eleanor Matthews isn't exactly who everyone thinks she is. Let me go back 3 years, to the day my life changed completely. Thomas was an industrial equipment salesman, an honest, hard-working man who woke up at 5 in the morning and came home exhausted. We weren't rich, but we lived well, comfortably middle class. Ryan grew up without luxuries, but he never wanted for anything. I worked as a financial analyst at a small brokerage firm in Boston. I spent my days immersed in numbers, charts, and market trends. It was low-key work, but I was good at it. Very good. When Thomas died of that sudden heart attack, my world fell apart. He was only 52. We didn't have time to prepare, to say goodbye. One day, he was there, laughing with me in the kitchen. The next day, I was picking out flowers for the funeral. What saved us financially was the life insurance. $100,000. For many people, that's a fortune. For me, it was the safety net that would allow me to grieve, pull myself together, and figure out how to move on without Thomas. Ryan was finishing college. I used part of the money to pay for his senior year, to ensure he graduated debt-free. I used the rest to move out of this smaller, cheaper apartment, where I could live with less financial pressure. And so I was left with about $60,000 in the account. $60,000 that would change my life forever. I was still working at the brokerage, but I was in the midst of mourning. I spent my days analyzing companies, studying markets, trying to distract myself from the pain. And that's how I found Matthews & Co. Yes, the name is a coincidence, or maybe it's fate. I'll never know for sure. Matthews & Co. was a small but promising cosmetics company focused on sustainable and vegan products. The market was beginning to explode in that direction, but most investors were still skeptical. I, however, saw something different. I spent weeks studying the company. Financial statements, marketing strategy, supply chain, market research. Everything indicated that this company was about to take off, and the stocks were absurdly cheap. It was a gamble, a risky gamble. I took $50,000, almost all I had left of the insurance, and bought shares in Matthews & Co. My boss at the brokerage thought I'd lost my mind with grief. "Eleanor, you're throwing your future away," he told me. But I wasn't. I knew what I was doing. 3 months later, Matthews & Co. launched a revolutionary line of products that went viral on social media. Celebrities started using it. The media started covering it. Stocks soared. Within 6 months, my investment had multiplied tenfold. I had $500,000. Within a year, the company expanded internationally and went public more broadly. My shares were worth $3 million. Within 2 years, when large retail chains began distributing the products globally, I woke up one morning and discovered that my shares were worth $18 million. And I was, unbeknownst to anyone, the majority shareholder of Matthews & Co. How did this happen? Simple. I had bought my shares when the company was still tiny, when very few people invested in it. As the company grew, I held on to my shares and, at strategic moments, bought a few more using the dividends and profits I accumulated. Before I knew it, I owned 52% of the company. And I made a decision no one could know. I registered everything under an anonymous corporate name, EM Holdings, a perfect legal veil. In official records, EM Holdings is the majority shareholder. No one knows who's behind it. Not even the company's board of directors knows who really controls them. They report to legal representatives, lawyers who work for me but never reveal my identity. Why did I hide it? For several reasons. First, because I was still grieving. The idea of going public as a multimillionaire, dealing with the attention, the pressure, and the radical changes in my life, it was too much. I was still trying to accept that Thomas wasn't coming back. Second, because I wanted to protect Ryan. He was building his own life, his own career. The last thing I wanted was for him to find out his mother was rich and for that to change who he was, how people treated him, or how he saw himself. And third, because I discovered that I liked my simple life. I liked my quiet apartment. I liked not being noticed. I liked living without ostentation, without falsehood, without people approaching me out of self-interest. I continued working as a freelance financial consultant, not because I needed the money, but because it kept me busy, connected, and sane. And I lived modestly while my fortune grew quietly in the background. I was going to tell Ryan. I'd planned to do so about 6 months ago, just before he met Ashley. I wanted to sit down with him, explain everything, make sure he knew our future was secure, that I was okay. But then Ashley showed up, and something made me hesitate. Something about the way she looked at me, the way she talked about money, about getting ahead. I decided to wait. I wanted to see who she really was. I wanted to make sure Ryan was with someone who loved him for who he was, not for what he could have. And now, sitting here, after being called a good-for-nothing old woman and poor, I finally understood why my instinct had told me to wait. Ashley had no idea who she had just humiliated. On Monday morning, I woke up with my eyes puffy from crying. The humiliation of Sunday was still fresh, throbbing like an open wound. I made myself coffee in silence, sat on the couch with my laptop, and tried to focus on work. I had some reports to review, some clients to meet, but my mind was elsewhere. It was on Ryan, on his smile when he looked at Ashley. It was on her venomous words echoing in my head. Worthless old woman, miserable little apartment, good for nothing. Without much thought, I grabbed my phone and opened Instagram. I don't usually spend much time on social media, but every now and then, I check in to see photos of Ryan, to feel connected to his life. He doesn't post much, but I always like everything. It was then that I saw it. Ashley had posted a new photo a few hours earlier. She was standing in front of a towering glass building in Manhattan, smiling radiantly, and dressed impeccably in a gray suit and high heels. The caption read, "I got my dream job. After so much effort, I'm finally part of one of the best cosmetics companies in the country, Matthews & Co. Get ready. I'll show you what I'm capable of." My heart stopped. I reread the caption 3 times to make sure I wasn't imagining things. Matthews & Co., my Matthews & Co. I dropped my phone on the couch as if it had burned me. I stood there, completely paralyzed, trying to process what I had just read. My hands began to tremble, not from fear, not from sadness, but from something else entirely. It was almost unbelievable. Ashley, the woman who had called me poor and worthless 2 days ago, had just been hired by the company I owned. I hurriedly grabbed my laptop and went straight to Matthews & Co.'s internal HR system, a system only I and a few senior executives have access to. I typed in her name, Ashley Morgan, and there it was, hired the previous Friday, marketing department, position, senior marketing analyst, salary, $85,000 per year. Start date, today, Monday. It had started a few hours ago. I took a deep breath, trying to contain the wave of emotions that hit me. Anger, shock, irony, and, for the first time in days, something that felt a lot like hope. Fate had just handed me Ashley on a silver platter. I continued reading her file. The application had been submitted 3 weeks ago. She went through 3 rounds of interviews. She was hired by marketing manager Claire Donovan, an excellent professional who oversees the entire creative team. Everything seemed legitimate, normal. Ashley had earned the job on her own merit, or at least she'd managed to convince the right people she was competent. And now here she was, in my building, working at my company, with no idea who actually signed her paycheck. I closed my laptop and leaned back on the couch, letting a slow smile creep across my face. It was the first real smile I'd given since Sunday. Ashley thought she had landed her dream job. She thought she was moving up in the world, joining a prestigious company, conquering the world. She thought she had humiliated me and gotten away with it, that she could call me irrelevant and continue her glamorous life without consequences. She had no idea she had just entered good-for-nothing old lady territory. I picked up my phone again and looked at her photo. The arrogant smile, the confident pose, the ambitious hashtags, and then I read the comments. Dozens of people congratulating her, telling her how much she deserved it, how incredible she was. Ryan had also commented, "So proud of you, love, you're going to rock." My heart sank when I saw this. Ryan was happy for her. Ryan had no idea what kind of person he had married, but he would find out. Sooner or later, he would find out. I took a deep breath and picked up my work phone, a separate phone I use only for Matthews & Co. Business. I texted Gerald Foster, the CEO who reports directly to me. "Gerald, I need a meeting this week, in person, in Manhattan. I have some questions to discuss about the company's structure." The answer came in less than 2 minutes. "Sure. EM, when works best for you, I'm available. Thursday, 10 a.m., in my private office." "Perfect. I'll be there." I put away my phone and got up from the couch. I went to the window and looked down at the street, at the people coming and going about their normal lives, unaware of the silent dramas unfolding behind closed doors. I didn't know yet what I would do. I didn't know whether to confront Ashley directly, whether to fire her, or whether to simply watch her and wait for her to dig her own grave. But I knew one thing for sure. Ashley had made a fatal mistake in underestimating me. She had called me poor, irrelevant, worthless. She had spat in my face and laughed at my simplicity. And now, by a twist of fate I could never have planned, she was working for me. I went back to the couch, grabbed my now cold coffee, and sipped it slowly, savoring the moment. The game had completely changed, and Ashley didn't even know she was playing. For the first time since Thomas's death, I felt something other than sadness and loneliness. I felt power. I felt control. I felt that maybe, just maybe, life was giving me a second chance. not just to defend myself, but to protect my son from a woman who only wanted to use him. Fate had just given me the perfect gift, and I wasn't going to waste it. I spent the next 3 days preparing, not just mentally, but physically as well. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. On Wednesday afternoon, I went to an expensive boutique on Newbury Street, something I never did. I tried on suits, business dresses, and high heels. The saleswoman looked at me curiously, a 54-year-old woman, clearly not used to buying expensive clothes, trying on thousands of dollars worth of items. I chose an impeccable navy blue theory suit, perfectly tailored, that made me look 10 years younger and infinitely more powerful. Black Louboutin heels, understated yet elegant. A leather Celine bag, minimalist but expensive jewelry. I made an appointment at the salon and got my hair and nails done. When I looked in the mirror on Thursday morning, I barely recognized myself. I was no longer Eleanor Matthews, the middle-class widow in the simple apartment. I was E.M. Graves. I was the woman who had turned $50,000 into $18 million. I was the majority shareholder in a $200 million company. It was the woman Ashley had completely underestimated. I took an Uber to Manhattan. Normally I'd take the train, but not today. I arrived at the Matthews & Co. building at 9:30 a.m. The 15-story glass building gleamed in the morning sun. I'd been there only twice in the last 3 years, always discreetly, always without fanfare. Today would be different. I entered through the lobby and went straight to the executive elevators. The security guard recognized me. He was one of the few who knew who I really was. "Good morning, Mrs. Matthews," he said quietly, pressing the 15th floor button for me. "Good morning, Robert." Gerald was waiting for me on the 15th floor, in the private office we kept reserved for my rare visits. He was a 58-year-old man with graying hair, competent and loyal. When he saw me, he smiled. It's always a pleasure. You look different today." "Yes, Gerald. Today is a special day." I sat in the leather chair behind the executive desk. I need you to organize a meeting with the entire marketing department. Now." He blinked in surprise. "Now? You mean right now?" "Exactly. Tell them it's urgent. Tell them the majority shareholder wants to meet the team in person. For the first time." Gerald hesitated for only a second before nodding. "Understood. I'll arrange it immediately." He left the room, and I heard his voice in the hallway giving quick instructions. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes. My heart was racing, but not from nervousness. It was pure adrenaline. I'd lived in the shadows for 3 years, 3 years since I'd chosen invisibility, and in 15 minutes, it would end. At least for some people. Gerald returned 10 minutes later. "Everything's ready. The marketing team is meeting in the main conference room. There are 18 people, including manager Claire Donovan and the new hire, Ashley Morgan." My heart skipped a beat when I heard her name. Perfect. I stood up, smoothing my suit. Gerald looked at me curiously. "May I ask what's going on, E.M.? You've never wanted to expose yourself like this before." I smiled at him. Let's just say it's time for some people to find out who's really in charge around here." We walked together down the 15th floor corridor to the main conference room, a massive room with glass walls, a long mahogany table, and a spectacular view of Manhattan. I could see through the glass. The marketing team was gathered, confused, curious, some nervous. And there, sitting near the middle of the table, was Ashley. She wore a tight red dress, perfectly styled hair, and flawless makeup. She was laughing at something the colleague next to her had said, completely relaxed, completely confident. She had no idea what was about to happen. Gerald opened the door and entered first. "Good morning, everyone. Thank you for meeting on such short notice." All conversation ceased immediately. "We have a very special visitor today. For the first time in the history of this company, our majority shareholder has decided to introduce herself in person." A murmur ran through the room, curious glances, some excited, some nervous. Ashley was paying attention, but she hadn't yet glanced at the door. Gerald turned to me. "This is E.M. Graves, majority shareholder of Matthews & Co." I entered the room. The silence was instantaneous and absolute. All eyes turned to me. I saw shock, surprise, confusion. Claire Donovan, the marketing manager, widened her eyes. She'd clearly expected a man, perhaps a young executive, not a 54-year-old woman. And then my eyes met Ashley's. The color literally drained from her face. Her eyes widened so much I thought they would pop out of their sockets. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. She stood completely frozen, her hands gripping the edge of the table as if she needed to hold herself up to keep from falling. I walked slowly to the head of the table, my heels clicking in the silence. I set my bag down and looked around, making eye contact with everyone present. Then I settled my gaze on Ashley and held it. "Good morning, everyone," I began, my voice clear and firm. "My name is Eleanor Matthews. I am the majority shareholder and anonymous founder of this company. E.M. Graves is just a pseudonym I use to protect my privacy." The shock in the room was palpable. Some people began to whisper among themselves. Claire Donovan looked completely stunned. But I didn't take my eyes off Ashley. I built this company from a single investment 3 years ago. I turned $50,000 into an organization valued at $200 million. And I did it all behind the scenes, observing, guiding, deciding, while the world believed I was just, what did they say? Oh, yes, a good-for-nothing old woman. Ashley was shaking, literally shaking. Her face had gone from white to a deep red. Tears began to form in her eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but I held up my hand. "No, you will listen to me now." My voice was calm, but it held steel. "You were hired because you are talented, because I believe in your potential. But I want to make one thing very clear. In this company, there is no room for arrogance, for cruelty, for people who think they can humiliate others and get away with it." I looked around the room again. I built Matthews & Co. on respect, integrity, and excellence. And I expect every person in this room to embody those values every day. I turned my eyes to Ashley one last time. "Welcome to my company. And remember, never, ever underestimate someone based on appearances." The silence in the room was so profound that I could hear Ashley trying to control her shaky breathing. I grabbed my bag and turned to Gerald. "Thank you for organizing this. I have some one-on-one meetings right now. Claire, I'd like to talk to you in 15 minutes. "Oh, of course, Mrs. Matthews," Claire stammered. I left the room without looking back, but I felt the weight of 18 pairs of eyes following me. And most of all, I felt the crushing weight of Ashley's shock and terror. When the door closed behind me, I leaned against the hallway wall and let out a long, shaky breath. It was done. After 3 years of invisibility, I had revealed myself, and the look on Ashley's face had been worth every second. Gerald approached, with a small smile. "That was impressive, E.M." I smiled back. "Gerald, I think you can call me Eleanor from now on." After that Thursday meeting, I stayed in Manhattan. I booked a room at the Four Seasons and decided to spend the next few days observing the company's operations up close. I hadn't done so in 3 years, and the time had come to be present. But if I'm honest, I wanted to see Ashley. I left that conference room and went straight to my private office on the 15th floor. I sat in the leather chair, adrenaline still pumping through my veins, when my cell phone rang. It was Ryan. My heart raced. I answered, trying to keep my voice calm. "Hi, my love." "Mom, how are you? I'm sorry I didn't call sooner. It's been a crazy week." Her voice was cheerful, light, normal. "Ashley started her new job and she's super excited. You have no idea." I swallowed hard. "Really? That's great. She's at Matthews & Co., that giant cosmetics company. It's amazing, Mom. The salary is great. The benefits are incredible. She's over the moon." He paused. "By the way, she told me something really weird today." My blood ran cold. "What?" "Apparently, the owner of the company came out today for the first time. A woman named Eleanor Matthews What a coincidence, huh? Same last name as ours. He laughed. Ashley said it was super intense, that no one expected it. The woman is like a secret billionaire or something. I was silent, my heart pounding so hard I thought he could hear it through the phone. Mom, are you there? Yes, I am. Sorry, I was distracted by an email. My mind was racing. Ashley hadn't told him. She'd been silent, and I knew exactly why. If she told Ryan that her mother owned the company, she would have to explain why she was so upset. She would have to tell him about the insults, the humiliation. She would have to admit that she had called his mother a worthless old woman and poor. Ashley was trapped, and she knew it. That's great, Ryan, I managed to say, keeping my voice even. Looks like she got a great job. You did it. Anyway, Mom, I have to go. I have a meeting in 5 minutes, but I'll see you on Sunday, okay? To make up for the lunch you left early? My stomach churned as I remembered that Sunday. Of course, my love. I love you, Mom. I love you too. I hung up and stared at the phone. Ashley was hiding everything from Ryan. She'd come home Thursday night and hadn't said a word about who I really was. She'd probably made up some excuse, saying the meeting was just formal, that the company owner had just walked by. She was playing a dangerous game, and I was going to let her dig her own grave. On Friday morning, I arrived at the office at 8 a.m. I asked Claire for a copy of all the marketing department's current projects. I wanted to understand what each team member was working on, especially Ashley. Claire sent me everything within an hour. Ashley's project was a launch campaign for a new skincare line. I sat in my office and read every page. The work was mediocre, at best. Generic ideas, no creativity, no depth, but mediocrity wasn't grounds for dismissal. At 10 a.m., there was a project presentation meeting. The entire marketing team was present. Claire had invited me to attend, and I accepted, sitting discreetly in the back of the room. Ashley was the third to present. The moment she saw me in the room, her confidence evaporated. She was visibly nervous, shaking, sweating. She stood up to present and began stuttering from the very first sentence. Good morning. I'm going to present the campaign for the line. For the new line of... She looked at her notes. Lost. Claire tried to help. For the Radiance line. Ashley. Yes. Radiance. Sorry. Ashley opened the PowerPoint, and I immediately realized something was wrong. The slides were disorganized. The numbers didn't make sense. She'd proposed a budget of $200,000 for a campaign that should have cost $80,000 at most. One of her colleagues asked, Ashley, can you explain this budget? It seems way above the norm. She stammered, trying to explain herself, but she grew increasingly confused. She said she had based her findings on research, but couldn't cite any sources. She claimed to have data she clearly didn't. And then, in the middle of the presentation, she said something that changed everything. This budget was approved by Claire last week. Claire blinked in surprise. Sorry, Ashley, but I never approved this. You didn't even send me the quote for review. Ashley paled. But I sent it. On Wednesday. No, you didn't. Claire was clearly uncomfortable, but firm. I checked my emails before I came here. There's nothing, Ashley insisted, her voice growing shrill. I sent it. It's in my sent files. I can prove it. There was a heavy silence in the room. I intervened for the first time. Ashley, why don't you open your email right now and show us? She looked at me, terror written all over her face. I didn't bring my laptop. Use the one in the meeting room, I suggested calmly. She had no choice. With trembling hands, she opened the laptop in the living room and logged into her corporate email. She frantically searched the sent folder. And then she realized the email didn't exist. She had written it, prepared it, but never sent it. And now he was lying in front of the entire team and in front of me. I thought I sent it, she whispered, tears beginning to fall. I swear I thought... Claire intervened, professional but serious. Ashley, I think we should talk later. You can sit down. The meeting continued, but the damage was done. Ashley had lied publicly and been exposed. Some people looked at her with pity, others with contempt. When the meeting ended, I asked to speak with Claire privately. "Claire, I need you to send me all the emails and documents Ashley has produced since Monday." She nodded, clearly concerned. "Of course, Eleanor. I'm sorry about that. I really thought she had potential when I hired her." "You did the best you could. Sometimes people only show their true colors under pressure." I spent the afternoon reviewing Ashley's work, and I discovered more lies, fabricated data, research she claimed to have done but clearly copied from other sources without credit. Superficial reports presented as in-depth analyses. In 72 hours of work, Ashley had shown herself to be incompetent, dishonest, and desperate. On Friday afternoon at 4 p.m., I asked Gerald to call Ashley into my office. She arrived 10 minutes later, her face swollen from crying. She entered slowly, as if she were going to her own trial. "Sit down, Ashley," he said calmly. She sat, unable to look me in the eye. I placed a folder on the table between us. "This folder contains all your work from this week. Reviews, reports, emails, presentations." I opened the folder. "It also contains evidence that you lied about approvals, fabricated data, and plagiarized content from outside sources without citation." She started crying. "Eleanor, I can explain. I was nervous. You lied," I cut in, my voice cold as ice. "And not just once, repeatedly, in a company that values integrity above all else." "Please," she begged, tears flowing freely. "Please give me another chance. I need this job. I promise I'll get better. Ashley," my voice was firm, final. "You are dismissed. Leave immediately." She sobbed, covering her face with her hands. "Please, Eleanor, please. I'm so sorry for what I said. I'm so sorry for everything." I got up and walked to the door, opening it. "Security will escort you to your desk to collect your belongings. Your final payment will be processed next week." "Eleanor, please." She was on her knees now, literally begging. "I beg you, don't do this." 2 security guards appeared at the door. I looked at her one last time. "You called me a good-for-nothing old woman. You said I was good for nothing. Now you know exactly who is good for nothing." The security guards helped her up and escorted her out. I closed the door and returned to my chair. It was done. And for the first time in days, I felt something like justice. I returned to Boston on Saturday morning. The week had been intense, emotionally exhausting. All I wanted was to get to my apartment, take a hot shower, and process everything that had happened. But mostly, I needed to decide what to do about Ryan. He still didn't know anything. Ashley clearly hadn't told him about the layoff, at least not yet. I knew I'd have to reveal everything to my son eventually, but part of me wanted to wait. I wanted him to figure out for himself the kind of woman he'd married. I got home around 2 p.m. I changed into something comfortable and was making tea when the doorbell rang. I frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the door and looked through the peephole. It was Ashley. My heart raced. She was there, standing in front of my door, her eyes red and puffy, her face smeared with smeared makeup. She wore a wrinkled blouse and jeans, nothing like the flawless woman she posted photos of on social media. For a moment, I considered not opening it. But then I thought, no, I wanted to hear what she had to say. I opened the door, but kept my body blocking the entrance. "What do you want, Ashley?" She practically broke down. "Eleanor, please, please, I need to talk to you." The tears started immediately. "I made a terrible mistake. I know I did. But please, give me another chance." I crossed my arms, keeping my expression neutral. "You were fired for incompetence and dishonesty. There's nothing to discuss." "No," she screamed desperately. "It wasn't that. I was nervous. I was under pressure. You appeared out of nowhere and destroyed me psychologically. How could I work properly knowing you were watching me?" "So you're blaming me for your own mistakes?" My voice was cold as ice. "No, it's not that." She ran her hands over her face, rubbing away the tears. "Eleanor, I'm so sorry." I'm so sorry for what I said on Sunday. I was wrong. I was cruel. You called me a worthless old woman, I interrupted, each word tumbling out like a blade. You said I lived in a squalid apartment. You said I was good for nothing but a nuisance. You said it all to my face, in my silence, while my son was standing feet away. Ashley sobbed, covering her face. I know what I did, and I regret it. Please, Eleanor, I beg you, give me another chance. I need this job. Why? I asked coldly. So you can keep pretending to be someone you're not. So you can keep using my son as a ladder to climb. It's not that. She was hysterical now. I love Ryan, I really do. You love what he represents, I corrected. You love the idea of having a stable husband, a comfortable future, a life that looks perfect on social media. But you don't respect him. And you definitely don't respect me. Ashley was silent for a moment, just sobbing. And then she said something that chilled me to the bone. If you don't give me my job back, I'm going to tell Ryan everything. My blood ran cold. What? She wiped her face. And for the first time, I saw something different in her eyes. It wasn't remorse. It was desperation mixed with anger. I'll tell them you hid who you really were from me. That you let me marry your son without knowing you were a millionaire. I'll tell them you set it all up. That you sabotaged me on purpose. That you're a manipulative and cruel mother-in-law. I stared at her in disbelief. Are you threatening me? I'm doing what I need to do. His voice was shrill now. You destroyed me, Eleanor. You took everything from me. And if I'm going to fall, I'm going to take you with me. For a long moment, I just stared at her. And then, something inside me calmed completely. The anger, the hurt, everything disappeared, leaving only clarity. You can tell Ryan whatever you want, she said calmly. You can make up any story that makes you look like the victim. But do you know the difference between us, Ashley? She looked at me, confused and furious. I have proof. I have witnesses. I have reports showing your incompetence, your lies, your professional dishonesty. And when Ryan asks why you were fired, I will have every email, every document, every piece of evidence to show why. Ashley turned pale. And more than that, I continued, when you tell him that I own Matthews & Co., he'll ask why you didn't tell him on Thursday when you found out. He'll ask why you hid it, and then you'll have to explain why. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. You're going to have to tell him about what you said on Sunday, about how you humiliated me, insulted me, emotionally destroyed me, and then he'll understand exactly why I didn't tell you who I was, why I waited, why I watched. The tears came again, but this time they were different. They weren't tears of manipulation. They were tears of defeat. Now get out of my house, he said coldly, and never come back. Ashley stood there for a moment, trembling. Then, without another word, she turned and ran down the hall, sobbing uncontrollably. I closed the door and leaned against it, taking a deep breath. My cell phone rang. It was Ryan. My heart sank. I answered with a shaky voice. Hello? Mom. His voice was strange, tense. I need to talk to you, now. Can I come over? I closed my eyes. The time had come. Yes, my love, you can come. I hung up and went to the window, looking down at the street. I saw Ashley getting into a car, still crying. In 30 minutes, everything was going to change. And this time, it would be Ryan who discovered the truth. Ryan arrived 40 minutes later. I heard a firm knock on the door and took a deep breath before opening it. He looked different. His face was tense, his eyes red as if he'd been crying, or as if he were holding back tears with all his might. He walked in without saying anything, walked straight into the living room and stood in the middle of it, his back to me. I closed the door slowly and stood there, waiting. Is it true? His voice was hoarse, broken. You own Matthews & Co.? My heart broke when I heard the pain in his voice. Yes, Ryan, it's true. He turned to me, and I saw tears streaming down his face. Why? Why didn't you ever tell me? My love, let me explain, 3 years, Mom, he yelled, and I had never seen my son so devastated. 3 years you lived here, in this apartment, letting me believe that you were broke. I worried about you. I lost sleep wondering if you had enough money. Ryan, I know, I offered you money. His voice broke completely. Last year, when my car broke down, you insisted on lending me $1,000 because you said you had saved it. I felt horrible. I spent months paying it back in installments because I didn't want you to be in trouble. And all this time, you had millions. Tears started streaming down my face, too. I was going to tell you, my love. I was planning to tell you. When? He was desperate now. When exactly were you planning to tell me my mother was a millionaire? I was going to tell you 6 months ago, I confessed, my voice coming out a whisper, right before you met Ashley. But then she showed up, and I needed to be sure. He was silent, looking at me with a mixture of confusion and pain. Sure about what? I took a deep breath. To make sure she loved you for who you are. Not for what you could have. Ryan ran his hands over his face, wiping away the tears. She was fired. Mom, Ashley was fired from your company yesterday. I know. I was the one who fired her. He looked at me in disbelief. You did that on purpose? No. My voice was firm now. She was fired because she was incompetent and because she lied repeatedly. I have all the documents, all the emails, all the evidence. I didn't have to do anything but watch her dig her own grave. Ryan sat on the couch, putting his head in his hands. She came here, didn't she? I saw her leaving the building on my way in. She was a wreck. I sat next to him, keeping a respectful distance. She came begging me for her job back, and she threatened to tell you everything if I didn't rehire her. He jerked his head up. Did she threaten you? Yes. Ryan was silent for a long moment. Then he asked, his voice trembling, Is there anything else I need to know, Mom? I closed my eyes. It was now or never. Last Sunday, when we had lunch at your house, you left to take that work call. Yes, I remember. When you left, Ashley said some things to me. My voice started to crack. She called me a worthless old woman. She said I lived in a crappy apartment. She said I was good for nothing but making your lives miserable. Ryan stood completely still. What? She said I was poor, irrelevant, a failure. She said the wedding gift I gave her, the $10,000 I used from my savings, barely covered half of what she really wanted. No. Ryan stood up, his voice a horrified whisper. No, 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 she didn't do that. It did, my love. And I left that house crying, broken, without even being able to say goodbye to you. Ryan was pacing back and forth now, his hands shaking, his face red with anger and anguish. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were happy, I replied, tears falling freely. Because you loved her. And I didn't want to be the mother-in-law who destroyed her son's marriage. Oh my God. He leaned against the wall, covering his face. Oh my God, Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I got up and walked over to him, but didn't touch him. I still didn't know if he would forgive me. Ryan, I should have told you everything from the start. About the money, about who I was. I was wrong to hide it, but I needed to protect you. And I needed to make sure Ashley wasn't with you for the wrong reasons. He dropped his hands, looking at me with destroyed eyes. And was she? She was with me for the wrong reasons. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Ryan took his cell phone out of his pocket with trembling hands. I need to talk to her. Ryan, no, Mom, I need to hear it from her. He dialed and put it on speakerphone. Ashley answered on the second ring, her voice cracking. Ryan, I can explain everything. Is it true? He cut her off, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. Is it true what you said to my mother on Sunday? Silence. Ashley, I'm asking. Is it true that you called my mother a worthless old woman? That you said she lived in a crappy apartment? That she was good for nothing? More silence, and then a muffled sob. Ashley, Ryan yelled, and I jumped. Answer. Yes. Her voice came out a broken whisper. Yes, I did. But Ryan, I was nervous. You humiliated my mother. Ryan's voice was shaking with suppressed anger. The woman who raised me alone after my father died. The woman who used her savings to give us $10,000 as a gift. The woman who always loved me unconditionally. Ryan, please. You're disgusting. The words came out like venom. You're cruel, calculating, and disgusting. And I was a blind fool not to see it. Ryan, no, I love you. I really love you. No, you don't. His voice was firm now, final. You love the idea of me. You love what I could represent to your perfect Instagram life. But you don't love me. Because if you did, you never would have done what you did to my mother. Please don't do this. I want a divorce, Ashley, and I want you out of my apartment by tomorrow. Ryan, no. He hung up. The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan stood there, staring at the phone in his hand, breathing heavily. And then, finally, he broke down. He fell to his knees on my living room floor and began to cry. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place of pure devastation. I knelt beside him and hugged him. He clung to me like a child, burying his face in my shoulder, crying with the intensity that broke my heart. I'm so sorry, Mom, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I should have defended you. I should have seen. Shh, my love. It wasn't your fault. I stroked his hair like I did when he was little. You were in love. You didn't know it. She hurt you, he cried. She destroyed you, and I wasn't even there to defend you. But you're here now, I whispered. You're here now, and that's all that matters. We stood there on the floor of my simple living room, mother and son, crying together over everything that had happened, over the pain, over the betrayal, over the lost innocence, but also crying with relief. Because for the first time in months, it was just the two of us again. And finally, the truth was free. We stayed there on the floor for a long time. I can't say how long, 10 minutes, maybe 20. Time seemed to stand still. I just held my son as he cried, stroking his hair, whispering comforting words like I used to when he was little and woke up from nightmares. Eventually, the sobs subsided. Ryan pulled away slightly, wiping his face with his hands. His eyes were red and puffy, but there was something different about them now, a clarity that hadn't been there before. Mom, he said, his voice still hoarse, I need you to forgive me. I cupped his face in my hands. Ryan, there's nothing to forgive. Yes, you do. He shook his head, fresh tears welling up. I married a woman who humiliated you. I wasn't there when you needed me. I was a blind idiot who chose a stranger instead of listening to my instincts about her. You were in love, my love. You trusted her. That's not a flaw. That's being human. But I should have seen it, he insisted, his voice thick with self-recrimination. I should have seen the signs, the way she talked about money, about getting ahead, about appearances. I saw it, Mom. I saw it and chose to ignore it because she made me feel special. And there's nothing wrong with that. I wiped the tears from his face. Ryan, you're a good man with a huge heart. Ashley took advantage of that. But that doesn't diminish who you are. He hugged me again, tightly. I love you so much, Mom, so much. And I'm sorry for everything. I love you too, more than anything in this world. We stayed like that for a few more moments until Ryan finally stood up, helping me up as well. We walked over to the couch and sat side by side. So, he said, with a sad smile, my mother owns a $200 million company. I laughed, wiping away my own tears. Yeah, surprise. It's a huge shock. He shook his head in disbelief. Tell me everything, Mom. From the beginning, I want to know everything. And then I told him. I told him about Thomas's life insurance, about the $50,000, about how I'd analyzed Matthews & Co., and bet everything on that cosmetics company. I told him about how the stock had exploded, about how I'd become the majority shareholder almost by accident, about how I'd decided to keep it all a secret. I lived those 3 years in hiding because I was grieving, I explained. Because I didn't want attention, I didn't want pressure. And because I wanted you to grow up being yourself, without the burden of having a millionaire mother. Ryan listened to me silently, absorbing every word. When I finished, he stared at me with an expression of admiration that made me blush. You're amazing, Mom. You know that. I'm just a woman who did what she had to do. No. He took my hand. You are a woman who turned tragedy into triumph, who built an empire in silence, who protected her son even when it meant hiding who you really were. He squeezed my hand. You are the strongest person I know. My heart was filled with so much love that I thought it would explode. The following weeks were difficult, but necessary. Ryan moved back into his own apartment, a smaller, simpler place, more like him. Ashley tried dozens of times to call, text, beg for another chance. He blocked all contact. The divorce proceedings began immediately. Ryan hired an excellent lawyer, whom I discreetly paid for, though he didn't know it. They had been married only 2 months. There was no shared property, no complications. It would be quick. Ashley didn't fight. She knew she had lost, and more importantly, she knew she had no arguments. Not when Ryan had witnesses. Not when he knew everything. I heard from third parties that she had moved back to her parents' house in Philadelphia. Her social media accounts had gone silent. Her perfect Instagram life was gone. What about Ryan and I? We start over. We had dinner together 3 times a week. I took him on an official tour of the Matthews & Co. offices, introducing him to the team as my son. I showed him how the firm worked, explained my investment strategies, and shared my dreams for the future. Mom, he said one night as we ate dinner in my apartment, why do you still live here? You could have a mansion, a penthouse, anything. I looked around my small apartment, the comfortable couch, the simple curtains, the pictures of Ryan on the walls. Because this is my home, my love. I don't need a mansion to be happy. I need peace, simplicity, reminders that what matters isn't how much you have, but who you are. He smiled, his eyes shining. Father would be proud of you. My tears came instantly. You think so? I'm sure. He stood up and came to hug me. Just as I'm proud. So proud, Mom. 3 months later, Ryan was completely different, more mature, more centered, more himself. The divorce was finalized. Ashley was out of our lives permanently. One night, he showed up at my apartment with a bottle of wine and a mysterious smile. What's going on? I asked, laughing. I want to make a toast, he said, opening the bottle and pouring 2 glasses. We sat on the couch, and he raised his glass. To the most incredible woman I know, to the woman who taught me that true strength isn't about shouting the loudest, but about standing up quietly. To the woman who built an empire without anyone knowing, who protected her son above all else, who turned $50,000 into a fortune. My heart was racing. And most of all, he continued, his eyes welling up, to the woman who taught me the most important lesson of my life. Never, ever underestimate someone based on appearances. Because the most powerful woman I know lives in a 2-bedroom apartment and has worn the same coat for 3 years. I laughed, crying at the same time. Ryan, thank you, Mom, for everything, for loving me, for protecting me, for being you. He raised his glass higher. Thank you for showing me what true strength means. We toasted, glasses clinking softly. You know what's funny? I said, after taking a sip. Ashley called me worthless. And she was right about one thing. Ryan frowned. What do you mean? I smiled. I'm really not worth it. I'm not worth being silenced. I'm not worth being underestimated. I'm not worth accepting disrespect. And I'm definitely not worth letting anyone hurt the people I love. Ryan laughed. A genuine, free sound I hadn't heard in months. That's my mom. That was always your mother, my love. Some people just take a while to figure it out. We sat there, drinking wine, talking about everything and nothing, laughing at old stories, making plans for the future. Ryan had decided to go back to school, get an MBA. I had finally decided to step out of the shadows a bit more, to be more present at Matthews & Co. "Mom," Ryan said, late at night, "do you think you'll ever tell the world who you really are?" I thought for a moment. Maybe. Someday. But not because I need to prove anything to anyone. It will be when I feel it's time. "And when will that be?" I smiled. "When I stop liking my crummy little apartment." He laughed, hugging me tightly. "I love you, Mom, my favorite millionaire disguised as a normal person. And I love you, my son, my greatest treasure, always have been, always will be."